Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Padma Kumar.
And I'm Ravi.
So, Ravi, there's a lot of back and forth between many companies in the Bay Area and across the country as well on whether we should go back completely to work remotely versus coming asking people to come back to work. So recently, Airbnb and CoinDesk, both of Coinbase, sorry, both of them have decided to completely work remotely, like the entire company. Airbnb actually goes further and says that you can work from anywhere in the country and we will not reduce your pay. That's like
Mm.
a leading indicator for them, while at the same time contradicting them, like uh, companies like Google and Apple and even Elon Musk, they want people to come back to work, start working together and build products. So it looks like there's a dichotomy in the ways people are thinking how to move forward. So on which side are you leaning towards today, or this week, or generally where are you right now?
Yeah, I think I always we had another episode about this, and even
Right.
in that we talked about this. I strongly believe, it only works temporarily. I think people are just jumping to conclusions, looking at okay, we were able to work 2 years remote. Why not permanently, right? But
Right.
it works. Again, it works permanently for few roles.
Right.
Very specifically, but I think for a long term it doesn't work for anybody. So for example, if you're an accountant, then yes, it works. If you're an accountant for a medium scale company, you would not interact with many people, right?
Correct.
So for that role it works, but do you want to be an accountant of a medium sized company for your life, right? I think
Right.
that is the main thing.
I mean, there are people. It's we are not judging the job role, of course, but it's not like 100% of the people who do that.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, and the people who do it, people have been, commuting for a really long time. I've met a lot of people who commute, stay in Montana and work in Bay Area, even before
Wow.
this, like 5 6 years ago. So they have been commuting on weekends. So they pick their time. All right. So in a critical phase of a project, they commute, and then in a non-critical phase, they just work from home. So it's nothing new. But the problem comes where you're talking about complete remote and policies around it, right? That is where the problem comes in, because when you say okay, it's going to be completely remote, if you're doing a particular job, a particular role and responsibility, and you want to continue in it, it's not a problem for you, right? But let's say you hire 10 interns in your company. How do you train them? Are you going to train them using Zoom calls, right? Or are you just going to ask their managers to come to office? Or if you just ask them to come, they'll come. They're eager to learn the culture, and also they'll show up. But what are they going to get, right? They're just going to drink some beer and go play pool.
Yeah.
So it's not going to help anybody. So there should be an ecosystem for them to to nurture people. So I think people are just taking it for granted and then think, yeah. So it works in few areas, it doesn't work in few areas, but I,
Right.
I I strongly believe it should be hybrid. It should be open. I think the main reason people get really rattled about work from office and coming back to office is choice, right? I think they should have a choice. It should be more flexible. The policy should be more flexible. I think the reason they can't do it is it's very subjective, right? To put in a policy saying hybrid, have the
Right.
freedom to choose. Then what if I choose to work from home permanently? Then
Right.
where can a manager draw a line and say no, you can't, or you can? So
Right.
it is easy for companies to just be on one side or the other. But I personally feel I always had a little bit of freedom with when I could go to the office and when I cannot. When I had a lot of meetings, I would just skip it. I mean, when I didn't have much meetings, I used to go to the office, and then so that is the reason I never felt like it was a job to go to the office, because it was my choice, right? I
Correct.
think that is the main reason, at least according to me. But permanent work from home is not something I support. I don't think it will be fruitful for anybody on the long run. I think Airbnb and Coinbase, if I if I can just think about Coinbase, they just went public, and I guess they are they need a lot of resources, in engineers to
Correct.
build to scale up. So
Right.
maybe they're enticing. I think I'm just guessing here, but yeah, it just doesn't work. In especially product companies like Apple, Google. Uh, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I have a major complaint about this, greediness, where people say, "I'll work from, Alabama, or I'll work from North Dakota, South
Right.
Dakota, and I want Bay Area salary." Right?
Right.
That is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. Right? It doesn't work that way anywhere in the world. The salary is based upon your expenses, and then on top of that, you are compensated based on how good you are. Right?
Correct.
So you cannot just say that, why will my salary go down if I am working from a different location, because that is how the world runs. Okay.
Right.
It's a salary. Right? So
Correct.
if you go to North Dakota and earn Bay Area salaries, then you will be the richest person in the city, in that city,
Right.
whatever city you're living. Right?
Yeah.
So that's just an
That's
imbalance.
correct.
You will buy up all the properties, and then you'll be the richest man in that city.
Correct.
So it's not fair from a different angle. Right?
Yeah.
So that is the reason they're lost. Right? You cannot just live in US, get all your money, go to India and buy up all properties. No, you cannot. And that's how it's protected. Right? You cannot invest foreign investments. Right? So there are laws according to that, and the same applies on some level in this also. And it's a bigger topic to discuss about, but I'm just saying that that's not fair. You should just think about it logically. It doesn't work.
Right. No, no, you make a good point that for people who are in IC roles, like who are like doing their own job individually, they're not completely dependent on the team, and the team is not dependent on them. They are in a senior role. They are like responsible for their work, and people trust them. All those roles, I think, if they say they want to work from home because they have to take care of the kids or whatever, like whatever the a number of excuses they give, that makes sense. That's a very good point. But again, at the same time, the reason I think a lot of people don't want to go back to work, I think, is because of this inflation. So the salaries are not rising, and now people, your budget, what you got in the last few years, people are used to that budget, or your salary is like increasing $100 a month or $200 a month, but your budget is already spent, like all the money is already spent and earmarked. Like if you have a family, you probably know that. Now suddenly if they want you to come to work, in that case what happens is, uh, uh, you now have to put away about $200-300 a month for gas, or for many other expenses that you have, that comes in because you got to probably eat lunch at office. All those expenses come in, and suddenly people feel like they don't have money for that. Although no matter, it doesn't matter how much you make, at the end of the day, no matter how much you make, you will your lifestyle will come come close to whatever you're making, right? So I think that's one reason I think people are still hesitating to go back to work. But I think again, as we talked yesterday, the recession is looming, and probably a lot of people are saying the recession would be here in at least in the next 10 quarters, or like next 2 years there's a 70% chance of a recession in this country. So once the recession is in, when people see the there's not money left, and if you want to keep your job, you have to show up at work, then people will show up at work. I think it's like now they have the flexibility of finding another job, but eventually those all those opportunities uh, will go away, will narrow up, and then eventually that's when people will be like, okay, I'll just show up and work, show up at work, and that's how I think the cycle will that's what I'm predicting. That's how it'll eventually move. But again, but again, I don't think 100% of the workforce will be back at office. I would say a reasonable case would be about 70 to 80% of the workforce will be in office, and everybody else will just work from home. So, for example, HR, right? I don't know why would HR have to be in office, except if they have to show up at work for once a week or maybe once a month. I think that should be good enough to like, because the most of their work is online anyway. They're not like going and meeting people on the streets. So I think that those jobs will be mostly work from home compared to other jobs in the way.
The best thing is the hybrid approach, because yes, there are roles which need to be in the office, there are roles which need not to be in the office. But then again, it always makes sense to have that ecosystem. The HR will not be able to do an effective job if they can't talk to people, and talking on a video and talking in person is different. And hiring people, that can be done. Again, it can be done. It has been going on in the last 2 years.
Right.
But I strongly believe it should be hybrid. People should have the option to choose, and then the manager will have that responsibility if it makes sense for his team, if it doesn't make sense for his team, right? I think that's how things will go. But we'll know, I guess, in this year, by the end of this year, a lot of companies should have to come up with their own policies, because right now they're kind of waiting and seeing what the other companies are doing, I guess, most of them.
Yeah, you know how they say that the states should have more power than the federal. So I think we should follow some sort of a similar logic to this. Like the
Mm.
manager should have the control on how who can work from home and who should
Yeah,
work from office, and the federal will be like should let it go. The company CEO should not care about who's working coming to work and who's not. The
absolutely.
he should hold the manager is responsible, and the manager can decide who can work from home and who cannot.
Yeah,
Because yeah, he'll again, if he wants everybody to work from home, great, right? Like, who cares?
yeah, as
If he
long as it
doesn't,
is delivering what is
right,
promised,
correct,
I don't think that should be an issue. So
right.
it should be to the left to the person in charge, right?
And the projects, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, moving on from that, a good a sense of good news for us